Welcome to the Awakened Goddess Show, your source for inspiration, wisdom, and personal discovery. The place to learn from a diverse mix of mentors, metaphysical experts, spiritual leaders, and best-selling authors from around the world. I'm Angela Wilkinson, mindset mentor and founder of the Awakened Goddess Academy. Join me as I explore the minds of my masterful guests while they share powerful insights and easy-to-use tools you can start using right away. Now, let's tap into the energy of the Awakened Goddess and be enlightened by today's guest. Hey, I'm your host, Angela Wilkinson, and welcome to this episode of the Awakened Goddess Show. Allison Carr is a witch, a healer, a writer, a mother, and licensed acupuncturist. She is trained in classical 5-element acupuncture and is a certified herbalist in Chinese medicine, as well as a graduate of the Blue Iris Mystery School, where she trained in the skills of witchcraft, magic, and the path of the priestess with Colette Gardner. She writes a blog and offers classes in magic and healing. Today, Allison and I are talking about how we can use rhythms and patterns of the seasons to get the most out of life as we work with the energy and not against it. But before I talk with Allison, meeting Mr. Right can be tough, especially when you keep attracting Mr. Wrong. With tons of ways to meet someone, it can be overwhelming and feel like a second job trying to keep up with it all. Online dating, social media, and figuring out where you're going to meet him. What if it was easier than that? What if your soulmate is closer than you think? What if there were specific steps you could take to pave the way for Mr. Right to find you? Join me for my upcoming workshop, and I'll share 5 powerful steps in my love attraction formula, giving you the keys to find true love in 2016. Grab your spot now for the class at theawakenedgoddess.com/webinar-registration, or just go to theawakenedgoddess.com and sign up there. Now let's talk to Allison. Well, welcome, Allison, to the Awakened Goddess Show. I am super happy to have you joining me today. Perfect time of year. We're wrapping up 2015 and moving into 2016, and so you have a really cool topic to talk about with us today. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about tuning into the seasonal energy of the year and how there's a wheel of the year. So first off, what is
the wheel of the year?
Yeah, what is the wheel of the year?
Yeah. So the wheel of the year is an ancient calendar. It's a series of ancient festivals and holidays that's observed. It mostly comes from sort of old pre-Christian European tradition, but really it's a seasonal calendar that follows kind of major shifts within the season and kind of pinpoints sort of 8 energy centers within the year that are really potent times for transformation. So yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so let's just dive in. How are these different or associated with our typical holidays?
Yeah, so a lot of them actually have been Western, or we've incorporated them into our modern life. A lot of them you'll recognize. So I'm going to briefly run through when and what they are, and you'll start to see that some of them you know already. So the first one is the one that's coming up in the beginning of February, and that's either called Candlemas or Imbolc. It's right February 1st or 2nd. The next one that all people know about is the equinox. So that's mid-March, and then after that is May 1st, which we all know as May Day.
May Day, okay.
Yeah, which sometimes is called Beltane. And then there is summer solstice, which we all now know about. We don't always celebrate it, but that is the ancient name for that is Litha. After that is a little known holiday that most people don't celebrate at the beginning of August that is called Lammas or Lughnasadh, depending on if you're using the Celtic spelling or not. And that is sort of an early harvest festival. And then following that is the larger harvest festival of fall equinox. And then the next holiday after that is what we know as Halloween. The Celtic name for that is Samhain.
Samhain, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Spelled Samhain is how it looks like it's spelled, but it's pronounced Samhain. And that is really a festival of honoring the ancestors. In the Catholic Church, especially in Latin American countries, that's morphed into Day of the Dead, which merged with some indigenous holidays from that area. And then the very next holiday is what we just came out of, which was Yule, winter solstice, which we now celebrate as Christmas. So a lot of them are very familiar to us. It's just that we don't know the ancient roots behind them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so we can use these as like we were talking how there's kind of like transformative energy that's associated with each. So can we go through that?
Yes. Yeah. So within each of these holidays, there is a mystery teaching. If you look at what I love doing is I love going in and mining old sort of symbolism and looking at the rituals that people used to practice. And you find that if you pay attention to what was going on, there's actually a mystery teaching within each holiday. So I'm going to give you an example from Imbolc or Candlemas, which is just coming up. So many of the traditions around this holiday have to do with cleaning out the old and getting ready for the new. This is like the very early spring. So in many places around the world in the Northern Hemisphere, the spring hasn't really started yet. We're starting to see signs of it. Mm-hmm. Things are beginning to shift. Maybe the day is a little bit longer than it was at solstice, but it's not really spring yet. It's not warm. We're not seeing blooms. So really this holiday is about an act of faith. It's about making the commitment and taking a leap of faith to go another round on the wheel of the year. So really this holiday is about taking that first step of initiation. And one of the things I love about this holiday, another name that it's known by is the quickening. Which is that moment in pregnancy where you feel the baby move for the first time. So it's that idea of like, I'm just beginning to feel the earth stirring. So the mystery teaching there is to really pay attention. I actually I don't do New Year's resolutions anymore. I actually postpone all my resolutions for Imbolc. And I wait until that time when I can really feel the earth beginning to shift. And that's when I make my New Year's resolution. So that's an example of a mystery teaching within Imbolc. And then at the equinox, it's really what we now know as Easter. So that's really celebrating fertility, planting the seeds. This is the time to set your intentions really strongly.
This is my favorite part of the year. Not only is it my birthday is March 26th.
Oh yeah.
But there's just something about spring that's just like, I feel like that energy of that the birth of new things and all of the little blossoms popping up. It's like so exciting.
And potential, that's the message for this time of year. That time of year is potential. It's like the symbol, that we most associate with Easter is the egg. And this is the ancient day that Easter used to be celebrated on. Before it was associated with Christ, it was really a fertility holiday. And the egg is all potential, right? It's the embryo, it's the seed. We sort of know what might be coming, but we don't know how big, and we don't know when, and we don't know, what color it's going to be. We know kind of that we have the seed of what we want, but we don't know all the manifestations that it's going to take. So that's really the time to plant the seed. So I love writing out my intentions during that time of year and really just sitting and dreaming, like, what's the potential that is present?
Nice. Okay. And then, so how about Beltane?
Yeah, so Beltane is about desire. So all the things you've heard about Beltane, all the little whispered rumors about it are all true. Beltane is really about desire, and it's about tapping into, so the sun is starting to warm the planet. Things are really blossoms are coming out, and this is desire. This is like sex for plants is flowers. So this is really about tapping into what it is you want and feeling that fire within you and really tapping into some ecstatic practices and bringing your intention through in a more ecstatic way. So one of the things I like to talk about with Beltane is if you look at some of the old rituals, they're all about connecting with the wild within us. So the dances around the bonfire, the maypole dance, there's even rumors that people used to actually go out and have sex in the fields during that time. So there's this real wildness to the holiday. And what I think Beltane reminds us is that we need that. We need to tap into that wild place inside of our souls. It's really important to have that one, at least one time a year where you dedicate to really just being free, true, wild self. And Beltane is a great day for that. And
then I love, as we're talking about this, I can totally feel the energy like ramping
yes.
up. It's like, you just feel it going faster and faster.
Exactly. And if you tune in throughout the year, you'll notice you're doing this anyway. And what the Wheel of the Year gives us is a template for doing this intentionally and taking advantage of that natural ramping up of energy that's happening in the earth. So, and that ramping reaches its potential in summer solstice, right? That's the height, the peak of light within our northern hemisphere, at least. And that is a time to really let your self flourish. Like, this is the time to do, if you're going to do some manifestation, this is the time to do it. If you can stretch yourself past what you think is possible, if you can really stretch your limits and go to a place where it's limitless, the beautiful part about summer solstice is that everything that expands to its fullest potential has to return, right? So if you can stretch out as far as you can go by this time of year, everything that you are trying to manifest or intend for the year is naturally just going to start flowing back to you.
Ooh, that's exciting.
I love that shift of the energy. And this is where the energy starts to quiet down. And we move into harvest. And now it's interesting because summer solstice is not the hottest time of the summer for most of us. Like June, late June, it's really just starting to get going. And so all of the heat and the relaxation and the laziness of summer starts to come in after that. And that's when you have the first harvest days. So beginning of August is when we really start to see the fruit come in. And that for me is a time to start, okay, so I did all my expansion. I did all my, I really sort of pushed myself for the first part of the year. And this is the time of the year where I start thinking about pulling my energy back in and allowing myself to receive. So if you want to think of the first part of the year as being a more masculine kind of pushing drive, the second part of the year is the more feminine, starting to receive and let the gifts flow back to me.
Yeah, I like that. That's interesting because, it seems like there could be a part of us that we get going on this cycle of speeding up. And then I imagine that it can be challenging to kind of switch gears.
Yes, especially in our modern culture, because we're so achievement driven. We're so outwardly oriented. We don't have a lot of traditions and rituals that allow us to tune in and receive. And especially, I think what we see now with the rise of the divine feminine, we're starting to get back to that. And so I really love, the first half of the year, which is called the light half of the year, is really celebrated and well known. But I actually love that dark feminine side of the year, which we start to go into with Lammas. And then that further starts to amplify around fall equinox, the harvest festival. And that for me is really a festival of gratitude. So looking at what has come in for the year, what have I harvested for the year, and looking around and just allowing myself to be grateful. And then that takes us into Samhain, which is that some people know as the Day of the Dead or Halloween. And that's really a time of letting go, of releasing anything that we don't need to carry with us. And this is the piece I think that most of us are missing in our day and age, is that time of taking what we've gained and what we've gathered and looking at it and deciding, this I want to keep through the winter. And all the rest of this stuff, I'm going to let it go and I'm going to drop it and I don't need to carry it. And when we do this practice at Samhain, we go into the winter feeling refreshed and ready to hibernate and be internal and, really connect with our internal creative selves. And I find that that's an energy that's really missing in our world today.
Yeah, it is.
And it is. And then, we've just come out of the solstice season, which for a lot of us is just a crazy making time. It's so busy. We're all running around like crazy, but really the solstice is about cultivating that internal source of light. The whole world is dark around us. And we, this really, it's this idea, if we really do co-create our reality, we need some time to dream about that. We need that darkness to really hatch the potential. We need that time to really birth what we're going to co-create for the next year. And solstice should be that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that if you go through Samhain and you really do your releasing and your letting go, solstice becomes a lot lighter and easier to carry with you. You can release and let go of anything you don't need, keeping just the bare essentials for the winter. And then solstice becomes a celebration of what really does sustain me.
Mm-hmm.
What sustains me in the darkness? What is my light in the darkness? And even this idea of giving gifts or bringing evergreen into our house or lighting candles or having Christmas lights, this all becomes a celebration of that light within. And I have reframed my solstice into being not, an obligation to give gifts, but who supports me in my darkest time and showing them appreciation. And that was really a nice way for me to reframe the whole gift giving thing.
I like that.
Yeah,
because it seems like it's gotten to a point where it's more out of obligation that we do these gift exchanges and with money, that's a big piece for a lot of people.
Yeah,
that just brings up so much internal conflict of do we give, and how do you get through that time? So
we've forgotten why we even do it.
Yeah,
we don't. And most of us aren't even connected to why we're doing it. And when you reframe it in that question of who supports me, who is my light in the darkness, I want to show them a token of appreciation. Not only who do I gift, but what do I gift them, becomes so much easier to figure out.
Yeah.
So
I love that. It totally makes sense.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
So with this shift, and as it becomes darker towards the end of the year, and we're kind of going inward, it seems like, at least for me, the spring and when it's lighter out, I feel really energized and really happy. And then the darker times brings up, seems like, maybe unresolved stuff or sadness or that quietness. So can you talk about that?
Yeah. And that's the part of ourselves and our world that we really are lacking right now, and that I think is really needed. Mm-hmm. And that's the divine feminine, right? That's the internal energy of the divine feminine. And I find what happens, I think the reason why a lot of people have a hard time with winter is because if you haven't sat and cultivated and done those releasing practices, and also done all the practices of receiving, allowing yourself to slow down and start to receive and being grateful for what's coming into your life, if you haven't done those incremental gates to get you down into the dark belly of the year, it is a real rude awakening to all of a sudden not have the sunlight energizing everything, and to be faced with, maybe feeling overburdened, or maybe feeling overstressed, or maybe realizing that you haven't slowed down to actually take internal stock for a long time. And I feel like that's why a lot of us, when the light changes in November, we hit this real, it's like a bumpy part in the road where all of a sudden it's like, oh no, I don't want to do this. And I think that's because that's what I love about the Wheel of the Year, is that it allows us a gradual decline into that dark underbelly of the year. And then it becomes, instead of being something that is depressing or sad or disheartening, it becomes something that is nourishing and allows us to spark creativity. I really find the dark time of the year is the time when I get my most creative downloads. That's when I really turn internal and I dream up the best stuff for the coming year, is really in that dark nourishment. So I've switched to thinking of it more as being nourishment rather than being darkness or, depression. It's like, what can I find that's nourishing out of this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And taking that inward, like going inward and kind of getting into those, doing that self-reflection and maybe looking at those parts of ourselves that we don't normally look at because we're focusing externally.
Yes.
But I think, like you said, there's a lot to the letting go. Mm-hmm. And if we're not letting go, then that can really be weighty and pull us down. And so I like how you talk about taking that time to really take stock and look at, what's working, what's not, what do I need to let go of now?
Yes. Yes. I think we try to live the winter as if it were the summer with bad weather. And it has a purpose of its own. And really it is that unloading. We don't need to carry everything from the summer into the winter with us.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's not a time with just unfortunate weather. It's actually a time for like prioritizing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And the other piece I think that makes it hard for people is that it's essential to have community through the winter. It's really essential to have, that's that piece where knowing who is your light in the darkness, who helps sustain you through dark times. That's when we need that intimate connection. Summer is all about having that, joyful fun. It doesn't matter how well you know somebody, just having a laugh, having a party, having a dance, that's that. It's like, those connections can be more lighthearted and less intense. And in the winter, we really need to have the intimate people that we know are solid within our lives.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of chuckling to myself, thinking about how the hustle and bustle of people going to the mall in this really bad lighting that messes with our body chemistry. We're forced to be with all these people and all this energy, and then we go to these holiday parties with people that we may or may not like, and then we drink, and
we do it all wrong.
Yeah.
We really don't do it right. For me, when I finally learned about this process and started intentionally walking the wheel of the year, I really shifted how I dealt with the holiday season for the better. And now I take as much time as I can to take a break. Especially between Christmas and New Year. That's a nice time. The world kind of lets you, unless you work retail or another job that's really in high demand, it really lets you take a break kind of then. It's not unheard of to sort of take a hiatus during that time.
Yeah, it's true. It seems like there's kind of like a pause. In that one little week or that, that short period of time. It's it feels like people are kind of resetting their life.
And it's interesting because that holiday used to be, so we've all heard of the 12 days of Christmas, right? Mm-hmm. So that holiday actually used to be 12 days long. So it was, and it was seen as a time in between the year. So it actually was a separate little month all on its own. Some people called it the Omen Days.
Oh.
So because what you could do, Omen, O-M-E-N, what you could do is you could go outside once each day for the 12 days and look for a sign. And that would give you sort of a reading, like an oracle reading for the whole year ahead. And each day corresponded to each month of the year. Mm-hmm. So on the first day, you'd go out and you'd look for a sign, and that would be your sign for January.
Oh, cool. Okay. So when are the 12 days?
So what got adopted for the Christian calendar was the 12 days started on the 25th of Christmas and end on January 5th.
Oh.
But if you think about it in the ancient, like pre-Christian calendar, really, if you look at, if solstice starts usually it starts on the 21st of December, but it was always celebrated on the 20th. It's 12 days until what we now know of as the New Year. So it's not a coincidence, I don't think, that we now end our calendar year roughly 12 days after solstice. I think that's us evidence of the old 12 days, which actually started on solstice. And that's the other part about these holidays, is that a lot of them have been adopted by the Christian calendar, especially Catholicism has adopted a lot of these holidays. So I talked about Imbolc, which is Candlemas, and it's actually a Catholic candle mass that happens. So a lot of these holidays, the Christians were brilliant at taking old folk holidays and kind of just absorbing them into their canon. And so a lot of these holidays have actually survived, especially in the Catholic and the Lutheran churches. So you'll see evidence of them.
That's cool. Well, that just tells you how powerful they truly are, and how in alignment, there's a lot of truth in each of these holidays.
Yeah. One of my teachers used to say, you don't do the holidays, they do you. We are just, we're walking, we are of this earth. So we are as affected by the energies that are affecting it as it's not something we choose to do. It does us.
Yeah. Well, I find it fascinating how they even were they came up in the first place. Like in the ancient times, how were
Yeah.
these each created? And that, I think that's just fascinating.
Yeah. And if you look at them, I mean, if you really start to pay attention and notice them, there really is a palpable energetic shift that happens right around them. You know, there is a very different, like seasonal quality to February 2nd than there is to December 21st, even though they're both still considered winter. There's a very different feeling. And then March 21st, there's a very different feeling to the energy of the earth. And what I've noticed, if you start paying attention to them and celebrating them intentionally, is that it doesn't even matter what the calendar day is. You'll start to notice coming up to February, all of a sudden, the energy will arrive. And so even if it's January 28th, all of a sudden you'll notice and you'll go, oh, Imbolc is here. And they're kind of like week-long little gates that happen in the year, where the energy is really shifting and changing. And once you get in tune with them, you'll start to notice when they show up and when they're sort of over with. So a lot of people can get real, want to pinpoint, oh, what day is it? Is it February 1st? Is it February 2nd? And I just feel like they're a time period. It's a gate that we go through, an energetic gate that we go through. And once you know what to look for, you know when you're there.
Yeah. You feel it. You feel it. So which one is your favorite?
Imbolc and Samhain are my two favorites.
Yeah.
I love Imbolc because I love this idea of making a commitment to go again. It's like, if you want to talk about intentional living, there's nothing more intentional than saying, yes, I'm going to walk this wheel one more time. And what I love to do at Imbolc is I make a commitment every year to live my life as an act of magic. I make a commitment that everything that happens in my life is a miracle. Everything that happens in my life is, it's not uncommon. Like, we all know this idea of like, everything that happens is supposed to happen. Our lives are intentional co-creations. You create your own reality. And for me, making that commitment every year to renew that vow that, yes, I do accept this. I do accept this. Because sometimes if you don't go into it willingly, that idea that you create your own reality can feel like a curse sometimes too. Because you're like, why did I create this crap? Why is nothing going right? And for me, it's a reminder that to take time and actually make the vow that, yes, everything that happens is for my highest good. And I'm intentionally stepping into this next year knowing that everything I do is an act of magic. And it's reaffirming that we are all miracles. And so, of course, everything we do and everything we create is a miracle.
Yeah. Well, and I think reminding ourselves of that helps us with the letting go process.
Yes.
Because a lot of times, when we're emotionally invested in something, we can kind of struggle or force and try to make things happen when maybe it's just time to let it go. It's served its purpose.
Absolutely.
And like you said, we're co-creators. We've created this circumstance or this opportunity, and it comes. We're humans. We're feeling creatures.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a perfect, that's why Samhain is my second favorite holiday, because that's that bookend of at Imbolc, I intentionally make the choice that to accept the fact that I have power in creating my world. And at Samhain, I release back, into the arms of the goddess or into the arms of the divine. And I also recognize that as much as I have the power to co-create, I also am a part of something larger. Mm-hmm. And so it's that release, it's the yin and the yang. It's the male and the female, the masculine and the feminine. It's the opposites. And that's why I think those two holidays are just such beautiful sort of bookends for me on my devotional practice.
Yeah. Oh, this is so cool. I mean, when I first heard about the Wheel of the Year, I really had no idea what it was or what it is. And this is so fascinating because it's like intuitively I sensed some of these things we talked about, and I love things that help me be more intentional about my own life and using the energies and what's available, those resources to just be my best self or live my best life. And I think that's super cool.
Yeah. And that's the gift, I guess, of the Wheel of the Year is it is not just a set of days where you're obligated to enact a ritual or, do a certain weird act that may mean nothing to you. It's really about being intentional about your energy and allowing your energy to kind of merge with the energy of the earth and the energy of the seasons. And in that, you're carried along in a flow that is so much more powerful than just you alone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, it's like, so that's why I feel like they're kind of potent, times for potent change, and they really sort of activate the year for you.
Yeah. Cool. So, okay, I want to go back just really quick to the 12 days because that really sounds exciting and fun.
Yes.
So when do we start?
Traditionally, historically, if you read about this, it started on Christmas Day. But I move mine to a pre-Christian calendar, and I start mine on the beginning of solstice, which would be for me December 20th. And then I take it through to the 1st, the new year.
Do you set a specific intention?
So my intention would just be, show me what I need to know for the month of, and so the first day it would be January. Show me what I need to know. And it doesn't even, it's cold here in the winter. So being outside for a long period of time might not be super, appealing to people. So it might just be taking a moment in the morning and getting your coat on and going outside and just taking the first thing that you see, or taking the first beautiful thing that you see. And I find really it's an easy practice once you sort of release any kind of ideas about doing it right. It's actually really easy when you go outside. You'll know for sure when you see that thing, like maybe a bird will take off, or, maybe you'll see a beautiful flower that you didn't realize, or maybe a little green, I don't know, whatever is happening, or maybe you'll see a berry on a tree. Something inside you will just sort of feel like, oh, this was what I was supposed to see. And it'll feel complete.
Yeah.
Deciphering the omens can always be a tricky practice. So I make note of them, and I turn it more into a practice of, let's find out. Let's see what this means. And then I might go back and review the calendar. I might go back and review my notes at the end of the year and just see, what was that? What did that mean for me? How did that end up kind of manifesting?
Well, and I like that you remind us to make it simple and not overcomplicate it, because I know, in the past, if I would have heard this exercise, I would have gone outside and looked really hard, what is this thing?
Yeah.
And then I would have been like, well, is that it? And then I would have been like, well, what does that mean? And then I would have just made it this big, huge event.
Yes. There's a wonderful article about this process, if anybody's interested in learning more, by a woman named Caitlin Matthews. She does a really good job of explaining the history behind it and kind of walking you through a process.
Awesome. Well, I'll definitely put a link to that. So
great.
We all can check it out.
Yeah.
So what's a practical tip that we can start using right away?
Yeah. So what I would say is, I have given you a guide. There's a guide you can download to these holidays, and it's going to be on your webpage. So if you want just a reminder of these, I would download that guide, and then I would just start paying attention to the holidays as they approach. So as the beginning of February starts coming around, really start paying attention and maybe deciding what is it that you want to commit to this year. That would be my first practical tip, is take the beginning of February as a time to make your commitments for the year. And then you can keep the guide with you throughout the year and just check in and see, what is it? What do I feel like celebrating? And I gave you some really great, practical ritual ideas. Some of them don't even seem like they'd be rituals. So for summer solstice, I put in there, climb a mountain or run a 5K, do something that stretches your limits. So you can play with these and just have fun with trying out what the gift of the energy is of the season and how you could incorporate that into your life. This doesn't have to be serious, and it doesn't have to be something that's an obligation. It can be a fun practice that you take with you through the whole year.
I think that's so important. Fun.
Yeah, have fun with it. That would be my tip. Have fun with it.
Yeah. You guys definitely have to download Allison's guide. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful, and it's really well laid out. And she gives you lots of great tips. So, yeah, definitely check it out. So how can the listeners contact you, or where can they find you?
I'm actually just about to teach a masterclass on the Wheel of the Year. If this is interesting to people, you can learn more about this whole thing. I go much more in depth into the holidays, and that's coming up in mid-January. So if people want to tune in for that, I'm teaching a free masterclass on it. And I also run an immersion program where I take everybody through the Wheel of the Year. So if you happen to catch this podcast early enough in January, you might be able to hop on with us and walk through the Wheel of the Year intentionally with us. And then the rest of the year, you can find me at AllisonCarr.net. I'm always teaching classes and workshops and, writing articles. And I'm also on Facebook at Allison Carr, LAC. That's for licensed acupuncturist, which is my other job. Yeah. So you can find me there and connect with me on Facebook. And I run a Facebook group called The Wolf Pack, which is just for people who are interested in bringing about the great turning or the change of the age, using spirituality to make a better world.
Ooh, super cool. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
Before we close, is there any last, anything that you feel left unsaid?
I'm going to leave you with this thought because I just did touch on the wolf pack and the idea of changing the world. So we used to have this, the ancients believed that celebrating these holidays and staying in rhythm with the Wheel of the Year actually helped the seasons change. So if you want to look at the solstice, which we just came out of, having lights and candles around at solstice actually helped the sun return. And we have grown away from that idea and thinking that it's superstitious. We now know that the seasons change because the earth travels around the sun. But I think that there's some wisdom in staying connected to the earth and staying connected to the seasonal rhythms. Because if you look at what's happening now in our world, we're starting to see that, drifting away from these seasonal rhythms is not having such a great effect on things. And actually, we are seeing that the seasons are changing. We are seeing that our climate is shifting. And so I don't believe that just practicing a ritual is going to change the world, but I do believe that staying in tune with the seasonal rhythms and the rhythms of nature and keeping our connection a little closer to the earth teaches us how to live in harmony. And that is going to change things.
Mm-hmm. It is. And when you go with the flow and go with the energy, it's like life can be so much more easy and more fun and pleasurable and just
better for everybody.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, thanks, Allison, for joining me today. This was an awesome conversation. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. And now for you, my gorgeous goddess, was there something that Allison or I shared that resonated with you? If so, we'd love to hear about it. Head on over to today's show page at theawakenedgoddess.com and leave us a comment. Did you enjoy this episode? If so, subscribe to the show on iTunes and please share it with all of your friends. And if you want even more incredible resources, join the Awakened Goddess community to get Allison's gift and bonus content from the show. And until next time, goodbye, everyone. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Awakened Goddess Show. I hope you enjoyed today's guest and got something you can start using in your life right away. For more spiritual insights and to listen to more episodes, subscribe to the Awakened Goddess Show at theawakenedgoddess.com and discover wisdom that'll change your life.